While working on a sewing machine in prison, a man becomes distracted, resulting in the needle piercing directly through his finger, a pain so intense it feels as if it could be felt through the screen. As a prosecutor once known for his integrity and fairness, Byun Jae-wook received special treatment from his first day in prison. As many of the inmates were put there by him, endless torture made his life unbearable, even causing him to zone out while working. In an effort to clear his name, he wrote appeal documents overnight, only for them to be intercepted by the prison warden. At this point, no one could have imagined that this prosecutor, sentenced to 15 years for murder, would live a life of luxury in prison, not only having his own cell but also enjoying fried chicken. Everyone respected him, calling him sir. Even the warden catered to him hand and foot. What led Byun Jae-wook to be wrongfully accused? And how did he manage to clear his name in 5 years? The story begins with a resort development scandal. The Far East group planned to develop a migratory bird habitat into a resort, sparking protests from bird lovers. During a standoff between protesters and police, a group dressed like the protesters suddenly charged in with clubs, breaking through the barriers and clashing violently with the police. One man, acting recklessly, severely injured a police officer. This act shifted the direction of public opinion, with people starting to condemn the violent environmentalists. Therefore, Prosecutor Byun Jae-wook suspected the Far East group's behind-the-scenes manipulation. However, the arrogant Chung In-sik denied any involvement, even blatantly warning Byun Jae-wook to stay away from Far East group affairs, hinting at career repercussions.
원하는 돌이 정 맞는 것이 이것이 세상 이치 아니 뭐요 이거 인권 타령 아니야 이거야!
Despite Byun Jae-wook's track record of solving numerous cases, his approach was often aggressive and rough. Unexpectedly, right after Chung In-sik left, Woo Jong-gil, Byun's superior, received calls from legislators. His office displayed a plaque symbolizing the need to be as perceptive as a tiger and as steady as an ox. At a party that evening, he pretended to care, advising Byun Jae-wook to reconsider his enforcement methods, then subtly suggested that the person who injured the police might not be connected to Chung In-sik. Byun Jae-wook, not swayed, declared his intention to root out the power behind the resort development. Ignoring his leader's well-intentioned advice, Byun Jae-wook prepared to interrogate the suspect who had injured the police officer that very night. Although leadership had already made it clear that Byun Jae-wook was not to interrogate the suspect, he forcefully expelled the guard. This action, however, came at a great cost. The prisoner appeared meek, even suffering from asthma and needing medication at all times. Hardly the image of a violent thug. Yet, he insisted he was an environmentalist, claiming the injury to the police officer was an accidental harm in his quest to protect the environment. Faced with Byun Jae-wook's skepticism, he began to demonstrate his knowledge about migratory birds, a clearly rehearsed defense. Angered, Byun Jae-wook tore open his shirt and pushed him onto a table. Despite this, the man remained silent. Unexpectedly, the next day, the prisoner was found dead in the interrogation room. At the same time Byun Jae-wook was arrested, Woo Jong-gil immediately spoke out, promising to punish the murderer harshly and apologizing to the victim's family. Given Byun Jae-wook's history of violent law enforcement, the media sensationalized the event, quickly turning the uninformed public against him. In court, Byun Jae-wook insisted that the prisoner had severe asthma, but a friend of the deceased countered this claim, stating the prisoner was in perfect health, with no guards present and no surveillance footage. All evidence was against Byun Jae-wook. Woo Jong-gil suggested he plead guilty, then argue self-defense, as a strategy to preserve Byun Jae-wook to the greatest extent possible. A guard handed Woo Jong-gil the inhaler, the sole piece of evidence that could exonerate Byun Jae-wook. However, he threw it into the river beneath a bridge, sinking the truth forever. Unaware of the betrayal, Byun Jae-wook pled guilty in court, but his claim of self-defense was rejected due to lack of evidence. Woo Jong-gil made no attempt to intervene, and Byun Jae-wook was sentenced to 15 years in prison on the spot. This verdict struck Byun Jae-wook like a bolt from the blue, leaving him bewildered. He looked helplessly at Woo Jong-gil, who coldly turned and left, with the sharpness of a tiger and the steadiness of an ox. This was the essence of Woo Jong-gil's approach. Thus began the innocent Byun Jae-wook's prison life. In jail, Byun Jae-wook was either being beaten or on his way to be beaten. The guards saw everything but chose to turn a blind eye. Despite Byun Jae-wook's face swelling up like a bun, they had no intention of stopping. The relentless torment left Byun Jae-wook in utter misery. It wasn't until he saw Woo Jong-gil at the resort's ribbon-cutting ceremony on TV that he fully understood the situation. He wrote appeal documents overnight in an effort to seek justice. Looking at the materials thrown on the ground and the white shoes symbolizing innocence, Byun Jae-wook reminded himself that even drenched in rain, he must tread the path of light. Unexpectedly, a turn of events was on the horizon. One day, while hanging laundry, Byun Jae-wook learned that a guard was distressed over a real estate lawsuit, volunteering his expertise. As he had handled similar cases before, Byun Jae-wook effortlessly resolved the guard's troubling lawsuit after a meal of mixed sauce noodles, even advising on how to recover the breach of contract damages. Seeing this, another guard sought Byun Jae-wook's assistance. Seizing the opportunity, Byun Jae-wook made a small request. The guard then burst into the cell and beat up the cellmates without a word, driving them all out, which allowed Byun Jae-wook to move into a single cell. Word of this spread quickly through the prison, even reaching the warden, who began to seek Byun Jae-wook's help and even supplied him with cigarettes. Byun Jae-wook generously shared these with fellow inmates, quickly becoming a celebrated figure within the prison walls. Those inmates who had once looked at him unfavorably changed their attitudes, knowing that Byun Jae-wook's willingness to help could potentially reduce their sentences or even overturn their convictions. Everyone began to respectfully address him as Sir, laying the groundwork for Byun Jae-wook's future exoneration. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. One day, a new inmate arrived, involved in the resort conflict incident. Initially, he did not catch Byun Jae-wook's attention until one day, while watching a TV segment on migratory birds, the inmate boasted about his knowledge, sparking Byun Jae-wook's interest. Almost instinctively, Byun Jae-wook leaped from his seat to question the bewildered Han Chi-won, who claimed he learned about the birds during his studies in the United States, unaware that their fates had just begun to intertwine. During a meeting with his lawyer, Byun Jae-wook, with the help of a guard, barged into the visiting room. After reviewing Han Chi-won's materials, Byun Jae-wook suggested that the case could be eligible for a sentence reduction. His professional interpretation and analysis not only impressed the lawyer but also gave Han Chi-won hope. After breaking down Han Chi-won's psychological defenses, Byun Jae-wook took advantage of the momentum, inviting Han Chi-won to his single cell. Initially hesitant, Han Chi-won couldn't resist the temptation of fried chicken and revealed everything he knew to Byun Jae-wook. The mastermind behind the scenes, as Byun Jae-wook had suspected, was indeed the Far East group. Remembering that one of their accomplices had asthma and used an inhaler for relief, Byun Jae-wook made a difficult decision after hearing Han Chi-won's description. During the period utilizing the lawyer's plan, Byun Jae-wook had Han Chi-won memorize all the materials and information about the relevant personnel, intending to use Han Chi-won's operations outside to assist in his own scheme. Facing a group of formidable opponents, Han Chi-won couldn't afford any slip-ups. Despite his carefree appearance, Han Chi-won's deception skills were exceptional. He falsely presented himself as a student studying abroad, successfully deceiving a wealthy woman who remained devoted to him even as he was imprisoned. Subsequently, with a heartfelt confession, he captivated the naive wealthy woman, laying the groundwork for his future partnership with Byun Jae-wook. It didn't take long for Han Chi-won to successfully complete the signature Byun Jae-wook had asked him to practice, a signature that would play a key role in the future. With everything in place, and using the rhetoric provided by Byun Jae-wook, Han Chi-won successfully cleared his name in court. Overjoyed, he knelt before Byun Jae-wook, thanking him for regaining his freedom and promising to assist Byun Jae-wook upon his release. At this moment, Byun Jae-wook felt a burden lifted, unaware of Han Chi-won's future betrayal. Upon his release, Han Chi-won used Byun Jae-wook's savings to reinvent himself as a successful individual, hosting lavish parties for the bird enthusiasts who had been hired by the Far East group. Initially cautious, the fat man who had perjured himself opened up after being plied with alcohol and hearing Han Chi-won's heartfelt reminiscences about a deceased friend.
알고 있었지. 다 알고 있었는데 와.
Unbeknownst to the fat man, their conversation had been recorded by Han Chi-won. The recording, through the operation of prison mates, was successfully delivered to the prison, making Han Chi-won's first performance not disappoint Byun Jae-wook. The recording, along with the materials for the appeal, were presented before the judge. Chung In-sik, upon learning this, was furious, taking out his anger on his subordinates. However, Woo Jong-gil was even more enraged, as he was in the midst of an electoral campaign and the exposure of their scandal could have unthinkable consequences. Despite Chung In-sik's status, Woo Jong-gil viewed him merely as a puppet for amassing wealth. He spilled boiling water on the ground as a warning to Chung In-sik to resolve the matter quickly. Chung In-sik, in a rage, had the indiscreet fat man severely beaten, then foolishly sought guidance from Woo Jong-gil. Woo Jong-gil, under the guise of reminiscing, approached Yang Min-woo, now a minister and the prosecutor in charge of the case at the time, seeking to suppress Byun Jae-wook's appeal. Amidst their discussion of conspiracy, although Yang Min-woo was unaware of Woo Jong-gil's underlying misdeeds, he agreed to help pave the way for his future career. Later, Yang Min-woo visited Byun Jae-wook in prison, informing him that the recording could not serve as evidence and urging him to abandon his appeal. However, Byun Jae-wook refused to give up. Meanwhile, Han Chi-won, who was outside, starts to back off from helping Byun Jae-wook after seeing the fat man beaten into a plant. However, he underestimated Byun Jae-wook's resourcefulness. While on a date with his girlfriend, an SUV suddenly gets in their way. When Han Chi-won stepped out to inquire, he was unexpectedly assaulted by the occupants. Despite his girlfriend's attempts to intervene, afterward, the assailants warned Han Chi-won, leaving him no choice but to revisit the prison. There, Byun Jae-wook cautioned him that failure to cooperate would lead to the revelation of his true identity, effectively signing his death warrant. Thus, Han Chi-won was entirely at Byun Jae-wook's mercy. According to Byun Jae-wook's next arrangement, Han Chi-won joins the cheerleading team for Woo Jong-gil's campaign, and attracts Woo Jong-gil's attention by dancing vigorously, and takes a photo with him afterwards, and wins the aunt's favor with his handsome performance. Pretending to be a student abroad, Han Chi-won was introduced to Woo Jong-gil's secretary. Their candid exchanges allowed him to photograph Woo Jong-gil's ledger, a piece of evidence crucial for Byun Jae-wook's case. Armed with this evidence, Byun Jae-wook was brought before a judge again, where he challenged his initial confession by implicating Woo Jong-gil, prompting the judge to grant his appeal. This development took Yang Min-woo by surprise, straining his and Woo Jong-gil's relationship. Despite the risk of implicating themselves, they remained cautious, valuing their reputations. Woo Jong-gil then instructed the prison warden to ensure Byun Jae-wook's well-being, resulting in a raid on Byun Jae-wook's cell and the confiscation of his collected evidence, leading to a 30-day solitary confinement for Byun Jae-wook and repercussions for those involved. After solitary confinement, under close watch by the guards, Byun Jae-wook still received covert assistance from fellow inmates. In their final meeting, he ingeniously communicated with Han Chi-won through a prayer, prompting Han Chi-won to withdraw a significant sum of money. Despite the bank clerk's flirtations, the former guard, now living in poverty after being ostracized by Woo Jong-gil, could potentially testify thanks to this financial incentive. To get closer to Minister Yang Min-woo, Han Chi-won invested in a new wardrobe and falsely introduced himself as a prosecutor from another district at a high-profile party, purposely avoiding direct contact with Yang Min-woo. Instead, he mingled with another minister known for his social butterfly tendencies, setting the stage for further intrigue. This minister, lacking real talent but loving flattery, was swayed by Han Chi-won, who claimed to be his junior from the same school. With flattery, Han Chi-won had him disoriented. Following Byun Jae-wook's instructions, Han Chi-won engaged in topics of interest to win the favor of other prosecutors. After gaining their acceptance, he treated everyone to an expensive bottle of red wine, quickly becoming the center of attention at the party. Although Yang Min-woo was very suspicious and not easy to approach, his vanity is so strong that he will never let go of any chance to be in the limelight. Thus, with the old minister's introduction, Han Chi-won successfully got close to Yang Min-woo. To gain Yang Min-woo's trust, Han Chi-won falsely claimed they attended the same high school, which indeed piqued Yang Min-woo's interest. Unexpectedly, after earning Yang Min-woo's trust, Han Chi-won visited him and presented evidence of Woo Jong-gil's illegal fundraising with Chung In-sik for his campaign. Yang Min-woo questioned why he was shown this, to which Han Chi-won earnestly replied he knew about the special relationship between Yang Min-woo and Woo Jong-gil and merely wanted Yang Min-woo to be prepared. This gesture greatly endeared him to Yang Min-woo. From that moment, Yang Min-woo considered Han Chi-won one of his own, so much so that when his secretary reminded him of a meeting, he asked Han Chi-won to wait in his office to talk further afterward. After Yang Min-woo left, Han Chi-won, as per Byun Jae-wook's plan, found and signed the summons for Woo Jong-gil to appear in court with the signature he had practiced countless times. When Yang Min-woo returned and saw his own signature on the summons now in the hands of the court, he realized he had been used. An infuriated Woo Jong-gil confronted Yang Min-woo with the summons. But by then, Yang Min-woo's stance had already shifted. After Woo Jong-gil left, Yang Min-woo was furious and immediately ordered the arrest of all of Chung In-sik's men. Meanwhile, Han Chi-won, having been exposed for impersonating a prosecutor and being beaten by Chung In-sik, was saved at the last moment by the arrival of law enforcement, leading to the capture of Chung In-sik's henchman. Despite his cover being blown, Han Chi-won continued his psychological tactics with Yang Min-woo, suggesting that chaos breeds heroes, striking a chord with Yang Min-woo, who saw the potential fame in bringing down a corrupt politician. 5 years later, a guilty Woo Jong-gil returned to the prison, promising Byun Jae-wook he would use his pardon power after assuming office to free him. This time, however, Byun Jae-wook no longer believed his lies. Woo Jong-gil said that if Byun Jae-wook had listened to the advice to abandon the investigation, it would not be in this situation today. Due to the case implicating Woo Jong-gil, a candidate for election, the media spotlight intensified. Unexpectedly, before the trial, guards deliberately isolated Byun Jae-wook, leading to a trusted inmate stabbing him. As the defendant was delayed, and the judge was about to dismiss the case, Woo Jong-gil nearly laughed out loud. However, at the last moment, Byun Jae-wook appeared in court, injured, and began a poignant self-defense. Han Chi-won, acting as Byun Jae-wook's witness, confirmed the victim's asthma condition. He further exposed Woo Jong-gil's illegal profiteering and resort development in his direct financial dealings with Chung In-sik. When asked for evidence, Han Chi-won immediately presented a prepared photo on his phone, claiming it was taken at the time. Woo Jong-gil realized too late the extent of his former disciple's cunning. As Woo Jong-gil testified, Yang Min-woo didn't inquire about Byun Jae-wook's case but instead presented evidence of Woo Jong-gil's illegal fundraising. Woo Jong-gil argued it was irrelevant to the case, but exposing these deeds was precisely Yang Min-woo's intention. Byun Jae-wook then defended himself, not focusing on the cause of death but questioning the motive and suggesting Woo Jong-gil as the likely culprit. Woo Jong-gil dismissed it as conjecture without evidence. But at that moment, the former guard entered the courtroom with crucial evidence. Byun Jae-wook presented investigation records showing the absence of any support device near the victim at the time of death, implicating the person who took the device as the murderer. With the courtroom in agreement, Byun Jae-wook requested to present further evidence, including his conversation with the guard.
세차 한번 하셔야 되겠는데요. 5점. 선거 끝나고 계좌로 입금될 기다. 앞으로 찾아오지 마라. 잘 쓰겠습니다. 참, 근데 그때 그 네블라이저는 잘 처리하셨죠?
After pausing the playback, Byun Jae-wook presented an asthma inhaler, eliciting gasps from the audience. He then approached Woo Jong-gil, urging him to confess gracefully.
우종길, 난 끝났어.
그래도 한때 검사했던 놈이 어디서 가짜 증명을 가지고 법정을 농락해?
가짜? 당신이 어떻게 알지? 이게 진짜인지 가짜인지 당신이 어떻게 아냐고!
Realizing he had been outmaneuvered again, Woo Jong-gil watched as Byun Jae-wook played the recording.
네블라이저? 그거야 뭐 한강 어딘가에 잘 있겠지.
Causing panic among the senior politicians, Byun Jae-wook, using his wit and courage, cleared his name after 5 years, defeating Woo Jong-gil and revealing the truth. Relief washed over Yang Min-woo as Woo Jong-gil was arrested in court. Byun Jae-wook also admitted his past mistakes in handling cases to the court.
전 폭력 검사였습니다. 피의자들을 강압적으로 수사했고 그들의 인권을 무시했으며 제가 가진 권력을 공권력이라는 이름으로 남용했습니다. 그래서 전 유죄입니다. 그리고 지난 5년이라는 시간을 감옥에서 보내면서 그 죗값을 치렀습니다. 이제 저를 그곳에서 나가게 해주십시오.
In the end, Yang Min-woo achieved his dream of becoming a star prosecutor. Choosing not to pursue Han Chi-won's case further, Byun Jae-wook was finally acquitted. Starting anew, the movie ends here. I'm a film lover. Subscribe to my channel for more, and see you next time.